Present.
Counselor Gerson, Counselor Trask,
Present.
Counselor Coleman,
Present.
Counselor Richards, Bob Brianna, David Lohman, Kenneth Hamlin, Counselor Gorley, Counselor Sanchez, Derek Dix, and Garrett Schaefer.
So I take it we have 8 present with 4 absent, and we have 2 openings. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. We're opening up to review and discussion of proposed 2021-2022 budget. We'll start off by election of chair. So, any nominations of who wants to chair the budget committee?
I nominate Bob.
Okay, I have a nomination for Bob Brianna.
Can we nominate
Yeah.
Kenneth, please? Mr. Hamlin?
I have a nomination for Kenneth Hamlin. Any others? I will need a second for either one of the two.
Can we just second for both of them so we can have an election? Or
Well,
do we have to
obviously,
second?
we need to second for one of them to be the chair, and then obviously the other one to be the vice chair. So just kind of I need a second. Okay, well, I have a second, a first and a second for Ken Hamlin to chair. Therefore, Bob Brianna, will you willing to vice chair? Okay. Show the record, we have Ken Hamlin as the chair and Bob Brianna as the vice chair. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ken to take over the meeting from here.
Okay, the budget message. Got Brian?
That would be me. Yeah. Thanks. Mr. Mayor, if I could real quick, Counselor Sanchez is trying to get in, but she needs a phone number. Would you mind if I texted her that number real quick?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
To your advantage there, sir, to say it out loud.
I'll go ahead and do it. Currently, right now, Angelina Sanchez, counselor, is trying to call into the budget committee meeting, and I've authorized Ray Towery to try to connect her to the Zoom.
It sounds like she's on. Ironically, Garrett just sent me a message that he's on his way,
Okay,
so he'll join us shortly, hopefully.
look for Rick Chola. Garrett Schaefer will probably be running late this evening. He may be attending, for the record.
If you guys can hear me, Angelita.
I can hear somebody.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, Angelita Sanchez is here on the phone.
Let the record show that Angelina Sanchez is present in the budget committee meeting. Anyway, wait, sorry, Ray, go ahead and take over.
Here we go. Enclosed is the 2021-22 proposed budget for your review. This is an opportunistic budget designed to focus on continuing a forward progression through service offerings and capital projects while preparing Sweet Home for future physical and operational challenges.
Excuse me. I can't read that. I know you're reading it, but I like to be able to follow you.
Yeah, come, last year we had copies.
Bring your computer.
No,
We're
We
supposed to
said-
have a
we,
packet. I thought
we
were gonna
asked
have-
Brandon for paper back.
Yes, so this process is certainly a little different than everybody is used to in the past. She might not be able to. I'll have to try to figure that one out. We are utilizing new software that the city has procured. It's called ClearGov. It allows us to do this process electronically. With this budget, a lot of the pieces were still moving as of yesterday. So we did hit print on the PDF out of the system, and the system didn't generate. So the vendor is currently working on that piece to figure out why we didn't get an actual PDF copy. But this document is available online. You will all have the link once you leave here today, so that you can at least begin looking at it. And as soon as we can get the paper copy out of the system, you will all have a paper copy, if you so desire. Otherwise, the digital copy will be available for your review.
I just can't read it.
Yeah, do you want her to make some copies of that?
That's up to these guys.
Mr. Brianna would like one.
Okay.
I would too, do you have pieces?
I'm sorry, Ray.
That's okay. Do you want me to wait until we get that so you can follow along?
No.
No,
Okay.
Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't make it.
Right.
Try not to get back a little bit. It's just hard.
Enclosed is the 2021-22 proposed budget for your review. This is an opportunistic budget designed to focus on continuing a forward progression through service offerings and capital projects while preparing Sweet Home for future fiscal and operational challenges. A budget is an estimation of revenues and expenditures. The recipe for these estimates requires part science, part art, and part use of a crystal ball. A budget is also a guide with which long-lasting decisions are made, and therefore requires that estimates are generally within an acceptable range to ensure the resources exist to back the requirements of these decisions. 3 of the last 4 years, the city has successfully forecasted revenues in the general fund within 1%. Last year, fiscal year 2020, general fund revenues were 1.4% higher than budgeted. We are particularly excited about this given the international pandemic that ravaged the global economy and threatened to upend the last quarter of the city's fiscal year. Couple this with the oddities of this current fiscal year, 2021, in which we are experiencing fewer delinquent utility counts, but near record unemployment. And you can see nothing seems to be what one would expect amid the worst pandemic since the early 1900s. Normal practice has been to look for and identify local, state, and national trends. Try to understand the impact that any new legislation may have upon our community, and then utilize state budget forecasts to derive our revenue figures. When constructing a municipal budget, often the immediately prior year is the best bellwether for future predictions. With COVID-19, this standard theory went out the window, forever branding the 2021 fiscal year with an asterisk. 2021 is an outlier in many ways, and while it should not be ignored, it is not as strong as an indicator as the fiscal years preceding it. With constantly changing state projections and economic forecasts, a crystal ball may prove to be the best tool we have to forecast this budget. Revenues. Overall revenue is increasing 4.3% or 1.5 million across all the city's operation and capital funds, with utility revenues increasing 3.1% and property taxes increasing 13.7%. Reductions in planned grants and other revenues contributes to the near flat revenue budget in this proposal, which is something to be concerned about in the long term, since personnel costs increase annually with the cost of materials and services needed to operate an efficient and effective municipal organization. Additional revenue streams and cost-cutting measures, such as the step to refinance existing debt, will be necessary to ensure long-term stability and success. Additional information on the refinancing, which will save utility ratepayers over $760,000 through 2035, can be found in the debt section of this document. Most of our revenues are from utility fees and property taxes. Utility revenues are a consistent monthly source of revenue and have remained surprisingly stable through the pandemic. The city has proposed holding water and sewer utility rates at their existing amounts while proposing an increase in the stormwater utility. Property taxes, on the other hand, are much more volatile, During the 2021 fiscal year, property tax valuations were significantly higher than anticipated, but also came in later than anticipated, causing some concern regarding actual receipts for the year. Ultimately, tax payments rebounded in late November, and the city's projected receipts are 8.8%, $365,000 higher than anticipated. With property values up another 7% annually through January 2021, and assessed values slated to climb the constitutionally limited 3%, this proposed budget includes an increase of 13.7% in property tax revenue over the 2021 adopted budget. This increase also includes a reduction of the compression down to 13%, which was near 35% just 4 years ago. Expenses. We are pitching an ambitious capital plan with funding for 14 projects totaling $7.8 million. The largest of these, the start of construction at the wastewater treatment plant, is expected to begin in the second half of this fiscal year. Currently, the project is projected to cost $30 million, including design and build. The city continues to work towards securing outside funding to help finance the project. We also anticipate several street improvement projects using funds available from the state of Oregon's Department of Transportation, and we will continue to make improvements at Sankey Park. The police and library levies are projected to be healthy at the end of the 2022 fiscal year, with 4 and 6 months beginning fund balance in our 5-year projections. This proposal also includes a significant transfer from the library fund to a capital reserve fund to set aside funds for either an upgrade to the existing facilities or to leverage for grants to build a new building. At the end of 2022, the proposal leaves the library capital reserve with nearly $400,000, which could be used to garner additional assistance from the state, grantors, and/or private donors. As discussed in the personnel summary, this proposal adds an employee to the executive department for information technology services to better support the organization and serve our needs, especially in the police department, which operates a 24-hour dispatch and law enforcement program, along with the library, which needs support on weekends. Additional personnel changes have been made in this proposal as well and are outlined in the personnel summary found within these pages. Thank you for all of your time, and thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Ray Towery, City Manager. So again, this was an evolving document. The document that I printed out there was an older one from today, prior to adjusting some of those numbers. So the correct answer is 14.
Thank you. We want the budget training there.
Thank you. So I'm gonna wander through kind of the specifics of the online document. Again, you all will have a paper copy if that is what you would prefer, because we're required to print those off. I can try. I tried a second ago and it wasn't playing nice. Yeah, it doesn't want to connect. So we'll make sure that for the next one you have it on the screen there in front of you. All right. So on the other screens that you see in the room, we have what is our new digital budget book. Again, this is a piece of software that the city procured 2 years ago, I think, right toward the end of actually the last budget process. And so this is the first year that we're using it to its full capacity. Inside this website, you will find everything that you will find in the paper pages that you may end up getting. It allows for a little bit more flexibility as far as navigation. So if you say you want to look specifically at the executive and legislative department, there's a section and at the top of the navigation specifically for departments, and then you can find the one that you are looking for. I don't expect you to be able to read the small print on the screen right now, but it should be larger on your own computer screens when you have it. But as you go down through, what you're going to be looking at specifically in the department sections anyways, is a brief summary of kind of what each department does for the city and its functions. So in this case, I picked Ray because he just read you his budget message. It does have an organization chart, which kind of outlines each of the department's staffing. And these organizational charts, for the most part, are going to be based on the proposed budgets. I say for the most part because there are some sticky circumstances in which it's hard to try to finagle a position in, for example, the IT services position based on where the funding exists, but who's going to kind of oversee that position. So there may be small gaps, but all of the description will have, what's being funded. So for example, this is a good one to pick. The executive department, this is the organization chart, but you'll notice is lacking a information technology services manager, because it's hard to kind of squeeze that in here. However, as we scroll down through the rest of their summary, you'll find, for example, that this section talks about 4.0 FTE function within this department, and it includes the city manager, an administrative services manager, information technology services manager, and the city council. The city council, all 7 of the city councilors count as 1 full FTE. That's where we get to the 4. There are a lot of graphs in these pages to kind of give you a better depiction on what this budget is doing. So in this case, we're looking specifically at the historical budget and actual, and what we're really dealing with here, obviously, for this fiscal year, or for these meetings, is this right-hand column that's labeled FY 2022. But this also gives you a snapshot kind of what has happened in the past. So, for example, it looks like in 2016, they budgeted $269,000, but really spent $345,000. So it gives you kind of an overview of how past fiscal years have gone. Lots of information in the pages as well that you can kind of flip through. We've done our best to highlight specific things or highlight sections that the budget seems like it took a huge jump, and why, or why did it decrease so much? We've tried to put everything right here at your fingertips. Each of the department budgets will have expenditures by expense type, and what that means is it groups expenditures by personnel, materials and services, capital, and in some cases, debt payments. So all of that is outlined in these pages as well, so that it gives you a different viewpoint for each of these specific sections. Again, some more historical information. All of the history in this document goes back to 2012. When we implemented this system, we agreed with ClearGov that we would take all of our actuals back to 2012. As far as the state is concerned, you only really need to see the last 2 fiscal years, so 2020 and 2019. But this system allows us to give you significantly more information than what we'd be able to cram into Excel spreadsheets and pages for printing. To comply with the state requirements, each of these sections does have their own breakdown. As far as here's the 2019 actual section, the 2020 actuals, what was budgeted for 2021, and what's being proposed for 2022. We also gave you a kind of a change column so that you could see what has changed from the prior year's budget. So in this case, for the executive department, it looks like total salaries and wages changed 45.9%. That's something that some folks would probably be like, whoa, why? And the information up above, specifically in this case, the addition of the IT services manager explains why that jump might be there. So again, we're trying to give you everything that we have trying to be extremely transparent about this process. And certainly as you go through these pages, if you have questions, please feel free to come talk to myself or Ray. We will both be happy to answer anything that comes out of your review of this budget. This is your budget. The 12 of you ultimately approve whatever budget you would like to see as representatives of this community. So we really want this to be something that you all take back with you, feel some pride in, and have a hand in kind of crafting what this looks like. We as staff have given you a proposal, a place to start. We are not married to whatever is in this document. If you feel strongly about changes that need to be made, let's talk about it. And that can be in a committee setting. Certainly if you need additional information that might take a little bit of digging to get, like you're wondering, how much we've specifically spent on, say, a specific vendor in the past. Just give me a heads up so that I can get that information pulled, but certainly we'll share that with everybody in the committee because it will likely impact everybody's decisions as well. So that is it for this section. This document does have a budget overview, which will give you an outline specifically of the budget summary. Kind of gives you a high level overview, gives you everything, expenditures, revenue, all kind of rolled up into one. In fact, I'll just load it. One nice little chart here for you to kind of give you, again, a starting point. So this is where you'll see some of those numbers that Ray was listing off in his budget message. It goes through a revenue summary, kind of outlining what the specific revenue sources are. So you can see, for example, that 21.9% of our overall revenue comes from property taxes within the city. An expense summary outlines expenses by department, which appears not to want to load today. But you'll be able to look at this graph or this pie chart and kind of see where the specific expenditures are by department. Public Works, Community and Economic Development, Police Department, Finance, Executive, Library. I think I hit them all. Also important in this document, and what a lot of folks like to see, is information related to personnel. So one thing that I would like to remind the committee of this year is the personnel expenditures, again, as has been done for the last 2 fiscal years now, all of the personnel expenditures are rolled into one line item. So each department, each fund, you will see a line for staff pay. The specific ending account code is 110. We have done that on purpose. It's not that we are trying to hide the overall personnel. In fact, I've gone through and listed out each budgeted position in each of the specific departments. But what we're trying to do is afford greater flexibility for evolving trends. Certainly, the IT services manager is one example of that, in which staff proposed to the council about regarding adding that position, given the amount of time that is spent by existing staff and the amount of money that we are paying a vendor for those services. We have that flexibility in kind of making some changes during the fiscal year, but still staying within that total dollars that we are allocated. So in the budget overview section and under personnel, the personnel summary outlines, where we currently plan for all those positions to sit and reside, and what makes up those individual numbers that you'll see in the spreadsheets. But again, for flexibility purposes and meeting evolving trends, we've tried to budget those in one line so we can greater respond as things occur. Lastly, I will highlight this appropriations by classification. So this is giving you an outline of where does our money go. So we've talked about the specific sections, the personnel services, the materials and services, and the capital sections. This is also the debt service piece. all of these graphs are interactive. So if you highlight them, you'll be able to see specific sections of them. If there's a little sliver of the graph that you're like, I don't know what this really represents, if you hover over it, it's going to give you additional information through this little pop-up box that you see on the screen, so that you know exactly what you're looking at and what you're dealing with. We've gone through and summarized again some additional information based on departments. This is personnel services, and some staffing level information, personnel costs by departments. Much of the information in this platform is the same thing that you have seen in prior budget documents that you've gotten specifically last year. It's just been converted to a digital format, and there's significantly more graphs included, and pictures, I guess, because pictures are worth 1,000 words, and quite frankly, spreadsheets and graphing is a strong suit. Words, you can put a lot of words on paper, but it doesn't necessarily give a full perception on what is happening and where the funding is going. So we as staff truly feel like this is a better mechanism for you as a budget committee and the community to truly follow what we are trying to do. Lastly, the budget message that Ray just read off is in this transmittal letter section. So if you'd like to refer back to it when you're in here, that is available to you. And then just some general information regarding kind of the structure of the organization, everything like that is included in the introduction section. The last thing I want to show you is kind of a way for you to get even more information at your fingertips should you desire. So visiting the finance website on the city's webpage would lead one to see this Financial Transparency Center banner. Clicking on it loads the ClearGov platform, but has lots of information, again, at one's fingertips, a demographic snapshot. This information, and ClearGov has highlighted it for us, is based on 2018 U.S. Census Bureau data. So I think the 2019 data is out now. ClearGov, I imagine, will update this at some point, but this at least gives you an idea of kind of what you're looking at. Then you can look at specific funds in here, but really what I want to show you, and a way for you to get additional information than what you can find in the budget document even, is this revenues and expenditures section. The 2022 information is loaded into this system. It is solely, it's not actuals because obviously we haven't started the fiscal year, but all of the budget information is here. So what you can do with this section, for example, is I want to see. Hello. I want to see maybe, Brandon talked a lot about personnel in the meeting. So I'm going to go to this expenditure section, and then I want to see things specifically by object type. And this is just looking at the general fund for the moment, but I want to see where the salaries and wages are budgeted. So we can view the breakdown in here. It's going to tell you that 51% of the general fund's salary information is specifically allocated to community and economic development. And then Public Works and Municipal Court have a chunk as well. But it will allow you to then break down even further. So this one I just chopped into community and economic development. And if we scroll down, we see that community development itself, building, planning, engineering, and code compliance, all of those salaries amount to $289,000 for this next budget year, as far as the proposal. And then economic development specifically is $50,214. So you can click on this more detail and it will give you the actual, now you finally made it, the actual lines that are attributed in the budget. So lots of ways to get information, all of it available online quickly, easily. And we will make sure that you do get your printed copies. Hopefully they've worked out that issue overnight so that I can get them to you in the morning. But again, certainly as you go through these documents and go through the pages, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. For the next 4 to 6 weeks, that's exactly what, at least me, that's exactly what I am here for. And Ray will certainly be able to address any questions or concerns that you may have as you're going through it as well. So does anybody have any questions for me at this very moment that I might be able to answer for you?
No questions, thanks. Let's move on to capital improvement.
All right. Let me get this all set up. All right, in those very pages that we were just looking at is a section for capital improvement. So what we kind of wanted to do is give you a high-level overview of what we are planning for this next fiscal year, where we're planning to go really over the next 5 years. We've done our best to figure out, using our forecasts, what kind of funding we think we will have available to us for capital projects, and then assign dollar figures to specific projects across the city. So I'm going to spend more time on the 2022 section because that's the more critical part, I think. But we will also look briefly at kind of what the 5-year plan looks like. And then again, certainly questions I can answer. Yes.
For me, it's redundant. Feels like we're going over it, and then we're gonna go over it again later. So,
You have to turn on your mic.
sorry. Can't we do this when we get our packets? Wouldn't that be more feasible? To me, it's just redundancy, because you're telling me all the things that I already know for the, when you get the packet, we're gonna go over it again. So, am I crazy?
Certainly, I would say that that's up to the committee. If you would like to wait to cover capital as we go through each of the departments during the future meetings, then we can do that.
Well, we're going to talk about this again, capital improvements, and where the monies you want to go, correct?
Each department will likely have kind of a brief synopsis of overall capital projects,
Right.
or at
So-
least be able to say this is what we are planning as a department for the
Right,
next year.
so can't we just go there later?
I'd say that's up to the committee. If the committee chooses to table this item and come back to it as we go through the department presentations, you could certainly do that. Just push once.
I think what he's saying is we just want to have something in front of us that we're looking at instead of a bunch of numbers, like we could take some notes and stuff like that, so we don't have anything in front of us, so, and we're gonna get it later, and then we could take notes on it later. I think that's what you're. So,
If I could, this software is really powerful. I would encourage you to allow Brandon to show you what this is capable of, at least. Also, it'll give you a broad overview to allow you to be prepared for when we do talk individually. One of the things that we're trying to do is be more transparent with the public, and this software really allows us to do that. And as we're going through this, Brandon can show people where they can find information if they're not on the budget committee at a whim. Yeah, so this will it has the ability to be pretty educational for not just the budget committee, but anybody else who may want to look online at what we're doing. We can certainly work to keep it very, very brief and get everybody home as soon as we can, though.
The other thing you've already showed us, you're going to show us where we can go and find this out for ourselves. So that's something I'm going to do. I mean, I'm on the board for that reason. If you just show me how to get there, which you've already done, I can do this on my own and find out the information myself. So, I mean, the software is great. I'm sure it is. I'm sure that, I mean, this is going to be the future to come anyway. There's not going to be a whole lot of stuff. But I understand where you're going with it, but to me, it's still redundant. I can go there and see all of this. And I'm sure Brandon will explain it great, but I'm just saying, to me, it just seems I can go and look at this myself.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so Brandon, were you looking at giving us an overview of what, not necessarily financial, but of what that what we're looking at as far as capital improvement projects are concerned? Or were you looking at just doing the money?
No, I think what we were hoping to focus on with the capital improvements is to go through specifically how many requests the departments have submitted, and then kind of walk through our process to how we choose those projects. Yes, the money you're going to see throughout the many pages, as is anybody who looks at these budget documents. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the money because that's all you're going to talk about for the next 6 weeks. But just giving you a high level overview, how much we're looking at, total dollars for all of the projects, like Ray said, to give you a stepping point, a point to launch from when you actually start digging through the meat and potatoes, so to speak.
Well, I do think it's important for the committee to know this because this is a very important plan for the council that we're going to be spending a lot of money on capital improvement because the city needs capital improvement. And I think that it would be beneficial for the committee to hear this overall plan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment too. He does this because he doesn't like me. But the thing of it is that the people that are not here and maybe there, if they can hear this and see it in the paper, they will have a better idea of how to get there. And they're not going to get it without us going through this. I'm not opposed to doing this because I tend to forget things. And so it helps me a lot. And you're not going to be here for 3 hours doing this. So you're going to run through it and make it as clear for me as I can be. And when I get the paper thing, it helps me a lot too. But I really don't think this is a waste of time. So I'm.
I got your lady, but I'm ready to go. It sounds like that the majority would like for you to go ahead with it, Brian.
Okay.
Brandon.
When it comes to budget time, there's a lot of names that I probably go by to some people. So I know all of you are going to love reading this document at night, right before bed. You know, it's a riveting read. So, all right, I will keep this brief. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the detail of everything that is in here. This is purely an overview of our capital project plan. We spent a lot of time working on developing the specific projects that we need to complete. And quite frankly, what happens is departments will submit I'll call it a wish list. If they could go to Disneyland with it, they would. But ultimately, then it's the responsibility of the finance department and the city manager in compiling this document and this proposal for you all to figure out what do we actually have available. You know, we cannot just put together a plan that says we want to spend $25 million when we don't have $25 million. And so that's where we become, I guess, not friends with some of the departments as we go through and we have to put an X over some of the projects. But certainly as the budget committee, you all have the ability to look at the overall list of projects and say, no, we kind of disagree with you here, Brandon. This really is something that we feel is more critical and should be funded. And that's kind of how this process is supposed to go. Okay. On the screen and in the document that you'll flip through on your own time is the capital improvement plan for at least this next fiscal year. Departments submitted a total of 17 capital projects for the 2022 fiscal year at a total of about $9.1 million. I don't have $9.1 million to give them. So what we want to do is find the right tab. What we want to do is walk through with you the specific items that we are funding. So Ray read off that 14 capital request number. This is a list of everything that we are funding for the coming fiscal year. So the police department and public works are the two primary departments that have capital items that are being funded. Of those 17 items, we are funding 14. And we're short about $2 million in what folks were hoping to accomplish in the 2022 fiscal year. Specifically, we're looking at some technology upgrades for the police department. The police department is also hoping to procure a new canine vehicle, as well as another patrol vehicle. The patrol vehicles we try to replace every 5 years. Okay, Jeff will talk a lot more about his specific capital requests when he gets to his part of the budget presentations. So I'm not going to dive into much detail on them. They're also looking to replace their back gate that kind of comes and goes as it pleases, I guess. Then specifically on the public works side, this is where you will find a majority of the capital each year. It takes the lion's share, certainly, given that they have more projects and more stuff in the ground that needs it to be completed. Public Works and the finance department spent a lot of time going through the specific projects and their needs for the next 5 years. And I can tell you that not everybody left the table happy, which in my world is a good budget. But every corner that we turn, there's a term in the finance world, limited and diminishing resources. And that's exactly what we as an organization are dealing with on a regular basis. We have not found that elusive money tree that I think everybody in the world is searching for. And so we have to be smart and prudent about the capital that we do have and the money that we can spend on those items. Again, I'm not going to go through each of the specific projects because Greg will take his budget presentation time to go through all of those. I do want to highlight a few important parts of the capital for 2022 as far as Public Works is concerned. We're going to spend a lot of money at the treatment plant. So this proposed budget that is before you includes, for the first time in over a decade, the city is taking responsibility of its treatment plants back from a third-party vendor. There are some startup costs associated with that, but there are also some major capital items that Public Works has identified as needing repair and maintenance that in a 10-year-old facility we have not been able to get to this point. So specifically, we are looking at funding the remaining portions of a new backwash pump, which Greg will talk about, and also a variable frequency device, I think is what he called it. Drive. Thank you. Yep, VFD. Which limits what Public Works calls the pounding on the system, and when water is released from the treatment plant to go out to your homes and your businesses. We are finally getting some, I guess, forward momentum on the Highway 20 STIP project. It's a project that the city started back in, I want to say 2015. And here we are 6 years later, and we are finally going to see some progress on that. So we are budgeting those funds to move forward with that project for the 2022 fiscal year. It's about $250,000, which will be the city's portion of the remaining parts of the project. The project has been scaled back, unfortunately, but we're at least finally seeing some momentum on that. Yes.
When we get to that point, I'd like for you to make sure that everyone knows what that really is and why we're kind of committed to doing that. So if you kind of put that in your mind and remember that.
One other thing that we're planning to spend a significant amount of time on next year is updating our master plans. A majority of our master plans, if not all of them, are significantly out of date. This will kind of give Public Works and the council I guess, recommendations as to where projects should go in the future, where the city needs to focus its time and resources. We are planning a master plan for the water system before we move forward with significant changes and just replacing pipes that may not need to be replaced right now. So it's trying to be smart with the resources we have. The Community and Economic Development Department is planning on moving forward with a Parks Master Plan update. And then a stormwater update is also in the docket in this budget for the next fiscal year. All of these master plan updates require outside consultants. This is not work that cities typically have the capacity for internally. Or the staff wherewithal to be able to take that on. And so there are specialized consultants that will handle that process for us. So all of those have been budgeted in this next fiscal year. And then on the street side, we will see pavement go down, and Public Works would probably skin me alive for putting it in this fashion, but we're going to see pavement go down on streets. We have specific plans that are being developed. One phase of street overlays has already come before council to go out in the form of an RFP and is coming back to council on Tuesday. And Public Works is already preparing kind of that second phase after we received some significant funding from the state of Oregon. So we are moving forward with trying to get some of our streets paved. And I think everybody's looking forward to that. It's been a long time coming. Street money is certainly not something that we have a lot of, nor do any cities in the state of Oregon. It is a difficult item for cities to manage. And in fact, there's a lot of cities, many cities still with streets that are gravel. Some streets just don't have pavement on them. So I'll be honest, that was shocking to me when I first started in this role 3 years ago to believe that there were streets still with gravel on them, but it's a real thing. And Sweet Home has some of those. So Public Works will talk about kind of its plans for the coming year. Ultimately, in your budgets, you will see $7.8 million is being spent next year on capital projects. Over the next 5 years, we will see additional money going out the door. But while we are spending $7.8 million or proposing to spend $7.8 million in this current fiscal year, a lot of that money is coming from outside sources. $5 million of the capital funds for next year is for the wastewater treatment plant, from which we are receiving state funding to help offset our costs for that project. So that's a significant portion. But if you look at the next 5 years after the initial 2022, we only have 4.8 million of our own money to be able to put over a 5-year period. That's not a lot. And so that's something that certainly as a budget committee and as a council, we have to focus on how do we complete a litany of projects. And we've gone over this many times over. Some of you are hearing this for the third and fourth time likely, which is why I won't beat the dead horse. But finding resources for Sweet Home is critical in the long term, because while I show that I'll be able to fund $4.8 million in projects over the next 5 years, what was submitted to me was $35.3 million. That's a very large gap. I don't know how we're doing it yet. And so certainly a major portion of that 35 million is the wastewater treatment plant. A lot of that is going to come from debt service. And certainly I think as a budget committee and as a council, there is and will need to continue conversations surrounding, is debt the appropriate manner for us in the long term to finish what we need to finish? And how long do we have to pay for that? And how do we pay for the debt service? So as you're going through the capital plan in here, each of these capital items has a specific description that you can kind of flip through. So like for the police requests, here's each of those items that I was listing off and kind of the rhyme and reason behind them. I encourage you all to flip through those. Come prepared with questions for each of the department heads so that you really get a feel for, is this really the direction we want to go as an organization? Like I said, city staff prepares and proposes a budget to you all, but it's not ours to approve and not ours to adopt. So this is your time to really question us, to really make sure that this is the direction you want your city to go. And I hope that you all take advantage of that. There we go. I tried to put it on with a nice bow for you and not dive too deep.
Good job, Brandon.
Thank you.
Good job, Brian. Okay.
So I think the point of this next section on your agenda is to look at the specific meeting dates that we have proposed. These are the May 6th and 13th meetings are Thursdays, and I think the 18th is a Tuesday. All of these meetings would begin at 6 p.m. So that you have a little bit of time to make it home and grab some dinner and come back and talk numbers with us. But what we want to make sure is that this works for at least a majority of the committee and hopefully everybody, because we'd like you all to participate. But if we need to change some of these dates around, now's the time to do that. Works for me. Okay. 6 o'clock. So, well, see, you did that well. So each of these meetings will be live streamed, and you also have the opportunity, if you need to participate remotely through the Teams platform. So if there's a meeting through which that is more convenient for you in order to make it, please let us know. And we'll make sure that you have the resources you need to be able to join the meeting remotely. The specific departments are there on your page, so I will not go over them, but each of the department heads is excited about coming before you, kind of giving you a small, tiny overview of what their department does, and then answering your questions about the specific dollars that they're requesting. So, and then certainly if we need to, we will have that meeting on the 18th to go through the motions, which will be approving the budget with any changes potentially that you may make as a committee, as well as approving the tax rates for the next fiscal year. Yes, we will give you a call tomorrow and organize dropping them off if you all need a hard copy. So I guess before we depart today, is there anybody who does not want a hard copy? Councilor Coleman? Okay. Everybody else wants a hard copy? Okay. Councilor Sanchez?
Mr. Chairman, just remember, if you want to speak, you have to have that green light on.
That's true. Got to push the button. There we go.
How's that?
Councilor Sanchez, would you like a copy delivered?
A hard copy would be preferable, please. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. There isn't anything else. Yeah, Bob.
See all this? We just go to Sweet Home, Oregon?
Yeah,
And
it
get on
will
the
be on the
finance
finance
page?
page.
It'll be on
You
the
can find
finance
it from there.
page?
Yep, there's a, if you go to the finance page, there's a city budget section and you'll find it there.
And all of this is there.
Correct.
All right.
Already live and ready to roll.